Would you rather grind out 20 tiny jobs you have to fight for, or plant one relationship that pays you 100 grand over and over again? Most landscapers are chasing leads, but what they don't realize is that they're running themselves into the ground. I see it every day. Guys hustling for $5,000 jobs they have to compete for, driving across town for estimates that go nowhere, working longer hours for smaller profits, missing family dinners to follow up with tire kickers. It's exhausting. And the worst part, there's a better way, but nobody's talking about it. I'm not talking about some magical marketing trick. I'm talking about real results from real landscapers who've completely transformed their business by focusing on relationships instead of random leads. Today I'm going to show you the massive difference between the $5,000 lead you're chasing and the $100,000 relationship you're probably ignoring, and exactly how to start building the latter, even if you need work right now. Let me tell you about a quick story about Mike, a hardscaper I worked with last year. Mike was a lead machine. Facebook ads, Google ads, Home Advisor, Thumbtack, you name it, he was on it. His phone rang constantly with potential jobs. That sounds great, right? But when we sat down to analyze his business, something shocking emerged. Despite all those leads, his average project value was just $4,800. His close rate was only 22%, and most of these clients never hired him again. Worst yet, these jobs had the lowest profit margin in his business. After accounting for the cost of the lead, the time spent estimating, the follow-up calls, and the price pressure from clients shopping around, his actual profits on these jobs averaged just 18%. He was working harder than ever, but the needle wasn't moving. Meanwhile, across town, Dave was running a smaller landscaping operation. No fancy marketing, no ad campaign, no lead services, just relationships he'd built with 3 local real estate agents, 2 builders, and a landscape designer. His average project was 22 grand. His close rate nearly 80%. And repeat business and referrals were constant. His profit margins were consistently hitting 30 and 40%. Think about it. Would you rather plant 12 small yards a month for 5 grand or craft 3 outdoor living spaces for 30 and never even bid against competitors? The difference wasn't skill. Both were excellent at their craft. The difference was their approach to finding work. Mike was constantly starting from zero with each lead, having to prove himself, compete on price, and overcome skepticism in every new contract. Dave was starting with borrowed trust from his relationships. The real estate agents, builders, and designers had already vouched for him. The potential client was pre-sold before Dave ever showed up. One of my real estate agent friends wanted to have a go-to landscaper they knew that every time they completed a project, it would add a certain amount of value to the sale price of that house. They didn't want to search for random landscapers every time. They wanted to develop a regular relationship that they could count on, where they knew the quality of the work. They would call their landscaper, and that relationship would become a priority. A job would get done, and it would add value to the house. Everybody was happy. Oh, that's the difference between a $5,000 lead and a $100,000 relationship. But this isn't just about bigger project sizes. The actual quality of the client changes dramatically when they come through relationships instead of a random lead. When I ask landscapers to describe the differences, here's what I consistently hear. Lead-generated clients typically start with low trust. They're shopping around. They're comparing multiple bids. They're focused primarily on price. They're asking questions like, can you do it cheaper? Or, why are you more expensive than the other guy? The intent of most leads is usually pretty low. You really have to have more of the sales cycle or sales process in place to nurture that lead into a qualified lead and then determine, is this something that they want to do right now? Or are they just curious? Where are they at in their buying cycle? But with a relationship referred client, the conversation completely shifts. They start with trust. They ask questions like, when can you start and what would you recommend? They're looking for guidance, not just the lowest bid. In a relationship driven model, you've already been pre sold on the value of your job. You just need to go in and do the work. The threshold and all of the preparation goes way down as far as that whole sales cycle and sales process when comparing a lead versus a relationship. Think about your own buying decision for a moment. If you need a specialized service, maybe like a doctor for a health concern or a mechanic for an expensive vehicle, would you just Google it and pick whoever's cheapest? Or would you ask someone you trust for a recommendation? When people get a trusted referral, they're not primarily buying on price anymore. They're buying on confidence, quality, and peace of mind. The conversation shifts from how much will this cost to when can you start? And this quality difference extends to how they treat you throughout the project. Relationship referred clients respect your expertise. They value your time and they don't question every detail or fight you on every extra. They pay you on time and they're far more likely to refer you to others. I often ask contractors to check their recent reviews. The glowing 5-star reviews rarely come from random leads. They almost always come from relationship based clients who feel a connection to your business. One contractor I worked with made a simple change. He looked at his last 20 Google reviews and called the clients who had left the best ones, just to thank them and reconnect. From those calls, he got 3 referrals within a week, all for projects larger than his typical lead-based jobs. Make a list of your last 10 completed jobs and look at your profit margins on those 10 jobs. I'm willing to bet that the leads had the lowest profit margin, and a referral, whether from a neighbor or another business, is probably going to have a much higher profit margin. That's just the financial reality of these two different approaches. Now, here's where relationship marketing gets really powerful. It compounds over time. While leads reset to zero every single time, let me show you how this actually plays out. I worked with a landscaper who formed a strategic relationship with just one custom home builder in his area. The first job he got from this builder was a modest, about $8,000 for a basic front yard package. But because he treated this as a relationship, not just a transaction, something interesting happened. The builder started trusting him with bigger projects, started bringing him in earlier, and started including him in client meetings. Within 6 months, that one builder relationship had generated over $120,000 in business. Within 18 months, it had passed $250,000. 3 years later, that single relationship was responsible for over $500,000 in revenue. It's $500,000, both directly from the builder and from the referrals the builder made. The projects weren't tiny $8,000 jobs anymore. As the trust grew, so did the project scope, and the average job size went from $8,000 to over $35,000. That's the compounding effect of relationships. They don't just repeat, they expand and multiply. A lead gives you one job. A relationship gives you an entire pipeline that grows over time. Think about the last time a lead that you closed. What happens after you finish that project? Usually you're back to square one, hunting the next lead. The relationship resets to zero. Now think about the last relationship-based job that you completed. What happened after that project? The relationship continues. The potential for more work remains, and the foundation you build gets stronger, not weaker. That's the difference between linear growth and exponential growth. Leads are linear. You get what you pay for, over and over. Relationships are exponential. They compound and multiply over time. I've never seen a better ROI than the one that comes from relationships. Period. Nothing else comes close. But how do I actually do this? Now do I start building these relationships when I'm just used to chasing leads? This is the question I get most often, and it's simpler than you might think. Building strategic relationships isn't about awkward networking events or pushy sales pitches. It's about creating genuine value for potential partners who've already served your ideal clients. Let me give you a simple example. One landscaper I worked with identified 3 local real estate agents who specialized in high-end properties. Instead of calling them up asking for referrals, he created something valuable for them first. He put together a simple one-page guide, 5 landscape improvements that increased home value by at least 150% of their cost. He included before and after photos of his own projects with the actual return on investment for each one. Then he reached out to those agents with a simple message. I created this guide that might help your sellers get top dollar. Would it be useful to you? Happy to customize it with your branding if you want to share it with your clients. 2 of the 3 agents responded positively. One asked for 50 printed copies with her logo on them. The other asked him to do a quick 15-minute presentation at his team meeting. From these initial contacts, he developed relationships that have generated over $300,000 in business in just over 2 years. And he's never once had to sell himself or ask for referrals. They come naturally because he's positioned himself as a helpful resource, not just another vendor looking for work. But I get it. You might be thinking, that's great for the future, but I need jobs now. If you need jobs right now, go buy some leads. You're going to pay a lot more for somebody else's rented fruit, rented land. If you're going to rent that land and pick somebody else's fruit that they have planted years ago, you're going to pay a lot more for that lead than if you plant the seed and harvest it over time. Yes, it's going to take a while, but then you can harvest the entire tree, not just one apple, off of somebody else's. That doesn't mean abandoning lead generation entirely while you build relationships. It means allocating some of your resources, maybe 80% to immediate lead generation and 20% to relationship building at first. Then, as these relationships start bearing fruit, you can gradually shift that ratio. So, what's a super simple first step you can take today? Identify 3 potential partners in your community who already serve your ideal clients. They might be real estate agents who sell homes in your target price range, builders or remodelers who work on similar size projects, landscape designers or architects who offer installation other than specialty contractors, maybe pool builders or outdoor lighting specialists. Then, instead of asking them for work, ask yourself, what can I create or offer that would genuinely help them succeed? The more specific and valuable your offer, the more likely they are to respond positively. How long is this going to take? When will I start seeing results from this relationship approach? If you're strategic and focused on creating genuine value for specific partners, you can often see initial results within 30 to 90 days. Not massive results, but enough to validate the approach and encourage you to continue. One contractor I worked with got his first relationship-based job just 3 weeks after implementing this approach. It wasn't huge, about $6,500, but it came with 0 marketing costs, no competitive bidding, and a 35% profit margin. More importantly, it led to 4 additional projects within the next 6 months, all from the same relationship. The key is consistency. Most contractors make one attempt at relationship building and don't see immediate results and go right back to the lead treadmill. Relationships are like gardens. You don't plant seeds today and harvest tomorrow. With proper care and constant attention, they'll produce far more than you could ever buy directly. Here's the best part. Unlike lead generation, which typically gets more expensive and less effective over time, as competition increases and platforms change their algorithms, relationship marketing gets easier and more productive the longer you do it. The first few relationship-based jobs might be similar in size to your lead-based ones, but as trust builds, those projects get larger and more frequent, more profitable. The referrals become warmer and pre-sold on your value. I've worked with dozens of landscapers and I've seen a clear pattern in those who successfully make this transition. Months 1 through 3, they establish initial contact with potential partners and focus on providing value. They might get a few small projects, but the main goal is building the foundation. Months 4 through 6, the initial relationship starts to bear fruit. They're getting regular projects. 1 to 2 key partners begin to expand on their network based on these successes. Months 6 through 12, the snowball effect begins. Their reputation spreads beyond their initial partners. They're getting referred not just to homeowners, but to other potential partners. Their average project size increases significantly. Years 1 through 2, they're developed a network of 5 to 10 solid relationships that generate the majority of their business. They're far more selective about which leads they pursue, focusing only on those likely to become long term clients. In years 3 or more, they've built a business that is largely insulated from market fluctuations and platform changes. They work with clients who value quality over price and rarely have to compete on cost. Imagine finishing work at 4 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Imagine choosing the projects you want instead of chasing scraps. Imagine your kids actually expecting you to show up for dinner, and you actually do. Think about how different your business would feel if most of your projects came pre sold, without you having to compete on price. If you were seen as the expert, the trusted specialist, not just another contractor with a quote. That's the real freedom that comes from building a relationship based business. So, which will you choose? The $5,000 lead or the $100,000 relationship? Will you keep renting somebody else's land, picking fruit from trees others have planted? Or will you plant your own orchard that produces year after year? Will you continue competing primarily on price, scrambling from one project to the next? Or will you build a network of partners who send you pre sold clients ready to pay for quality? The landscapers who thrive in the coming years won't be the ones with the biggest marketing budgets or the most aggressive pricing. They'll be the ones who built genuine relationships with the right partners in their communities. This is the exact foundation we built into the Authority Growth System. If you're looking to build long term wealth, not just chase the next job, we should talk. All because you can chase leads doesn't mean you should. Your future self will thank you for planting these relationship seeds today.